So speaking of sellers, I know you have a ton of experience on this. Let's talk about training your sellers on how to partner with Salesforce.
Yes, this is probably, I think, from just our relationship building, Sam, our both of our favorite topic to discuss. We could probably do the full 30 minutes just on this, but I think this is super critical in your whole engagement with working with Salesforce. As
Mhm.
Sam mentioned before, right? We sell by industry and by vertical, and it's not a mirror image across the entire world. The way our teams are structured in EMEA and UKI is different than they're structured in AMER. That's different than they're structured in even Canada as a subset of AMER, in LATAM and in APAC. So there are nuances to everything that we do with our different sales teams. And as I mentioned before, I was lucky enough to kind of grow up in our sales organization. So I have a lot of experience on what works and what doesn't work. And this is kind of where I spend my time in engaging with a lot of the really in-market partners that I work with that have been around for a really long time. But what you guys are really here to learn about, right, is how do you drive success with our Salesforce sales teams? And how do you take that nuance and help educate your teams on what works, what doesn't, who they're talking to, how to build their message, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a variety of different sellers that hit any account at any given time. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we have co-primes or specialists. I am an extremely large advocate of when you go and have a meeting with a Salesforce sales team to consider yourselves a co-prime and drop that language in meetings with them lands really well. It's a term they're really easily able to understand, and they can create a point of view on how they should be working with you, right? You are an extension of their team, the same way that you are an extension of the Salesforce platform. But in order to get that meeting and get on with them, you really have to make sure that your messaging lands. So as we discussed before, make sure that your message is super highly targeted. Let's not try to boil the ocean. We're probably going to get sick of hearing that term. But if you're selling into financial services and you want to talk to an SE, your message should be much more technical than if you're talking to an AE in financial services, because that's what they care about. They're the ones building the demos. They want to see what it looks like. They want to figure out how they're going to tell that customer 360 story from a product perspective. However, if you're talking to one of our AEs, what's in it for them. I tell my partners that I work with to lean on the messaging of why you, why now. It's a very old school sales methodology that we use internally here that works really well. And you should be treating Salesforce like a prospect. So why you, why now? Why does this account need my product and why do they need it now? There are sort of two edges of that I focus on with partners as well. It's, do you have a relationship with the account, or are you looking to gain a relationship with the account? If you are looking to gain one, who are you calling down on? Why would this matter to them and why does it matter to them now? Are they a publicly traded company? What in the 10K did the letter to the CEO from the CEO say that suggested that your product would be a good fit to make sure that they had a successful year or that they're going to hit their growth metrics that they're looking to do? We have thousands and thousands of partners. I was just on a team call here internally, and someone mentioned, hey, my team has 4,000 partners on them. How do you want me to divvy up my time? So that means that these Salesforce AEs have thousands of both, ISV partners and SIs reaching out to them at any given day and any given time, trying to vie for their attention. So that's why you really need that messaging to stand out and make sure that you are, why you, why now? It really matters that is tailored and locked and loaded. And I think if you talk to any of the partners that I work with today, they'll probably say the amount of emails that Allison wants to read before we send them out is insane. But I really want the message to be impactful. I want it to land with one of our teams and have them go, yeah, I really do want to work with this partner because I see how this extends our customer 360. I think right now we're going through a lot of changes and our AEs are learning a lot of new things around data cloud and Agentforce. So what's your story for those and how can you help them sell those two products? How can you help us learn as we're learning right now too? And lastly, like what I really want to focus on is this is not all about the Salesforce seller, right? I think it's super important to recognize that your team needs to walk away with getting something out of this conversation too. So
Mm.
how are they benefiting? Are they getting closer to the CIO? Are they talking to an AE and then opening up their book of business so that that AE can talk about additional accounts where we think the solution that you guys are offering fits? I think it's super important kind of going back to creating your strategy with your KPIs. It's making sure that you're getting value out of meeting with Salesforce as much as the value you're bringing to Salesforce. So I probably belabored that point, but Sam, what else would you add?
No, I think this was great, and you brought up some really excellent points. You know, I think coming at it from the partner's perspective, it is really easy to walk into these conversations and be very feature happy of like, here's all the great things my product can do for your customer. And that's okay. But as you mentioned, like the Salesforce AEs, to put it bluntly, they don't owe you anything. So, you know, to get their attention, I think changing that language to what's in it for them is really important. Like, again, what are the pain points that those sellers are experiencing? Is it selling new installs of Agentforce or Data Cloud? And how are you, as a partner, helping them get more new logos or sell bigger, better solutions to their customers and add value, but not friction to their sales cycle? So, really leaning into all of that as you're having these discussions. I would say secondly too, you know, if you're an alliance leader and you're on this call, then there should be really defined rules within your company of how you interact with the Salesforce team. So one thing that we often suggest is like, and this is what I've done in my past, but if you are an alliances person, then you are the expert on this partnership. You're the expert on this better together story, and it is your job to be the facilitator and make sure that that's super clear. If you bring your sales team along, because we're talking about a specific deal, it is their job to know everything about the deal. You know, what stakeholders are you working with? What's the time to close? What's the ACV, use case, et cetera. And so making those roles really clear and understanding like how to engage with Salesforce is really crucial so that we don't fumble. And then finally, one that's so obvious, but like doesn't happen is following up. You know, one touch point with a Salesforce seller, one touch point with anybody really is never going to cut it. So it's no different with these Salesforce sellers. But Allison kind of mentioned this in terms of like, now is your time of what's in it for you. So make sure that's very clear. What is your CTA when you're talking to these people, your call to action? Um, you know, I like to think of this as the three I's. So are you looking for influence in terms of can you mention to the account, I heard you're talking to X partner and we validate it's a great solution. Are you looking for an intro into a new champion or a new buying unit? Or are you just looking for information in terms of, hey, what hurdles did you run into when selling this deal? Is procurement awful? What do I need to be aware of? Who's the champion that maybe I don't know about? And so being very, very clear. And then once you've built this relationship, you've built the trust and the rapport, don't forget to ask if there's anybody else. Like, do you have any peers that have similar accounts? Would your RVP be interested in learning more about the solution for their team as we've just had a win and sourced X amount of ACV for your end of quarter? Again, put it in their language, but make the ask of how else can I leverage this network?
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. I love that one because I think that you can't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Mhm.
Salespeople really respect that, right? I might not be able to give it to you right away, but if you've shown up on a call and really proved your value with all of these things we mess it or mentioned, and you come to the table with a really strong point of view on the account, they're going to be excited to partner with you. Also keep in mind, like Salesforce alone has 50 plus products that we're trying to sell that are our core products. You really just need to stand out above the rest, and help your note to Salesforce stand out by creating that point of view as to all the hard work that you're doing trying to break into that account the same way they are.
Totally. Totally. I also want to just call out something really quickly. In my past, I've worked with AEs or even, you know, partner people who are like, but I don't really have anything to offer Salesforce on this deal. It's a new logo for us, you know, whatever. having, just to your point, a point of view or just information on here's who I'm talking to at the account. Here's what they care about. Here's their pain point. The Salesforce sellers want to know everything there is to know about these accounts. And so if you can just come to them with what seems like basic information to you and your seller, that's still a very good foot in the door. And so not being afraid to kind of just share that intel is going to get you further than you may think.
Yeah. And people like to do favors for people, right? So
Yeah.
if you created that point of view and you have an idea of who you're trying to break into, and you have great messaging and a great story as to why that customer or prospect needs to pick up the phone and talk to you, but you're not getting what you're looking for, ask the Salesforce AE, right? It gives them credibility to say, wow, I do know that person. This makes a ton of sense. I would happily make that introduction because everyone likes doing a favor for someone, especially when it's really, not that hard. So put in those asks and I am a strong believer that you will be rewarded for just putting in the legwork of creating the right messaging.
No doubt. Doing what you say you're going to do is the biggest key to success.